In this video, we'll look at the WASSCE 2023 General or Core Math, the Nigerian paper. And that is question number 7, objective. And it says that Mr. Manu is 4 times as old as his son. I do. 7 years ago, the sum of their ages was 76 years. How old is Adu? Now, there is word problem, and we are going to look at how we can solve this question. Before we start, if today is your first time on my students class channel, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button so that you'll be promptly informed anytime we upload a new video. And hey, one more thing, click the like button so that the video can reach a lot of people. Thank you. Now let's continue. Let us try to dissect this. Now we are talking about two people. One is Mr. Manu and his son called Adu. So we are talking about two people here. In mathematical terms, we will say that we are talking about two variables. Now when we are talking about word problems, we look at the variables that are concerned. Here we have two variables, and we can see, or we have to identify the variable that is independent. We have something that we call independent variable. Then we also have what we call dependent variable. So, the names are self-explanatory. When we say something is independent, it means that it doesn't depend on anything. And when we say something is independent, it means it depends on something else. Let me give you an expression. For example, if I write something like y equals x squared plus 5x plus 6. Now, this expression, if I want to find the value of y, then I have to know the value of x first. So the value of y depends on the value of x. If I put x equals 1 here, if I put in 1 here, the value of y, I can find the value of y. If I change 1 to 2, the value of y will also change. If I change the value of x to 3, the value of y. So the value of y depends on the value of x here. So in other words, because y depends on x, we call y the dependent variable, and x is the independent variable because y depends on it. So when we are dealing with word problem, we have to identify which of the variables is dependent and which one is independent. We will start with the independent variable first. So let's get to work. So we look at the question again. Mr. Manu is 4 times as old as his son Adu. Mr. Manu is 4 times as old as his son Adu. What does it mean? It means that if Adu's age is say 10 years, then Mr. Manu's age will be 4 times 10, 4 times the age of Adu, so that is 40 years. If Adu is 11 years, Mr. Manu's age will be 4 times 11, that is 44. So Mr. Manu's age depends on Adu's age. In other words, Adu's age is the independent variable and Mr. Manu's age is the dependent variable. So we begin with the independent variable first. So we will say we don't know Adu's age, so let Adu's age be equal to x. So Adu's age is x years now. So we can say that this implies that Mr. Manu's age, what do you think it will be? Is 4x, because we are told that Mr. Manu's age is 4 times that of his son. So that is the first statement, and we are done with this. Let's get on with the second one. It says that 7 years ago. Now 7 years ago, we are referring to the past. 7 years ago is a period. So let's put it down. 7 years ago. Now we have to be very careful here. Let us try to look at this again. Let us assume, let us take it that Adu is say 10 years now. If Adu is 10 years now, then what do you think will be Mr. Manu's age? Of course, it will be 4 times 10. So Mr. Manu will be 40 years. So if Adu is 10 years now, then what do you think was his age 7 years ago? 7 years. So if he is 10 years now, then it means that 7 years ago Adu was not 10 years. 7 years ago, it means that we have to subtract 7 from 10. So that means 7 years ago, Adu was just 3 years. If Adu is 10 years now, then 7 years ago, he was 3 years. And if Mr. Manu is 40 years now, then 7 years ago, Mr. Manu too was 40 minus 7 years, and that is 33 years. So currently we don't know their ages. This was just an assumption, so we don't know their ages. So 7 years ago, Adu's age will not be just X. Adu's age will be X minus 7. 7 years ago, so that means that we have to subtract 7 from Adu's age now. His current age is X. So 7 years ago, he was X minus 7 years. Now 7 years ago, what do you think was Mr. Manu's age? He too wasn't 4x years. Mr. Manu was also 4x minus 7 years. So you have to be very careful with these phrases. 7 years ago. So what does it say? It says that 7 years ago. So 7 years ago we have their ages here. The sum of their ages was 76 years. Now the key word here is sum. When we say sum, it means addition. For example, when we say the sum of x and y, sum of x and y, it means x plus y. When we say sum of 3 and 4, it means 3 plus 4. So the sum of their ages, what ages? The sum of their ages 7 years ago was. So he's not talking about the present. That's why we see the word was. 7 years ago. The sum of their ages, not their current age. It was. The sum was. So 7 years ago, Adu was x plus 7 and the father was 4x minus 7. So 7 years ago, Adu's age, which is which was, let me put it that way, x minus 7 plus the father's age, which was 4x minus 7, the sum, that is when you add them. When you add their ages 7 years ago, you get 76. So that is a very simple linear equation. Let's expand brackets. We have 1 here, so 1 times x, x minus 7. Then we have 1 here, 1 times 4x, 1 times minus 7, 76. Let's group like terms. So we have x here, we have plus 4x here. So x and 4x. Then we have negative 7. That gives us negative 14, 76. Let's add these two. We have 5x minus 14 equals 76. So I want to make x the subject. In other words, I want to find x. I have to get rid of the negative 14 here. So I'll add 14 to this side, and I'll also add 14 to this side, so that this will cancel that, and I'll have 5x to be equal to 76 plus 14. So 76 plus 14 is 90. And if I want to find x, I have to divide by the coefficient of x, and that is 5. 5 here 1, 5 here 1, 5 8 40, so 18. So x is 18. So x is 18. And what does the question ask? It asks us to find the age of Adu. How old is Adu? And I said let Adu's age be equal to x. So if x is 18, it implies that Adu's age currently is 18 years. Yeah, so the correct answer is C, 18 years. And it makes a lot of sense, even if you are to check it. Now, if Adu is 18 years now, right? What do you think will be the father's age? Manu. Manu's age will be 18 times 4. 4, 8, 32. 4, 1, 4, so 72. So this is the current age of the father. So 7 years ago, what do you think was the age of Adu? 7 years ago, that is, you subtract 7 from 18. Adu was 11 years old. 7 years ago, you subtract 7 from 72, and the father was 65 years. Now, the question said that 7 years ago, the sum of their ages was 76 years. Let us try to see if that is true. If we add 11 to 65, do we get the 76? 1 plus 5, 6. 1 plus 6, 7. So 7 years ago, indeed, the sum of their ages was 76 years, and it is really true. So the correct answer is C, 18 years.